I do have a question for any of the kids that are still in the room, any age. What is the holiday that's coming up soon? Next week. We wear costumes. Purim! Amazing! Amazing. Sounds like a good mom. So we'll learn a little bit about the Purim story today, just a preview for next week. But before that, Shabbat Shalom. A few weeks ago, a friend who's going through the conversion process mentioned the sense of imposter syndrome that she often feels in Jewish spaces. When I responded with, "Me too," she was surprised at the idea that I, the rabbi of a congregation, could feel like an imposter in Jewish community. I think about the moments in which students in an Intro to Judaism class ask historical questions I know nothing about, or someone asks me my opinion about Israeli news that I hadn't heard yet, or I'm counseling or advising someone who has decades more Jewish and life experience than I do. I constantly ask myself the question, am I truly deserving of my title of being seen as a spiritual and Jewish authority? I know at least that I'm Jewishly educated enough to remember two extraordinary biblical figures who initially also refused to believe they are worthy of their unique tasks. At least I know that I'm not alone, that no one with that sense of imposter syndrome is alone, that we are preceded by giants. Towards the beginning of the Exodus narrative, when God asks Moshe to go to Pharaoh to ask for the Israelites' freedom, Moshe insists, "Be Adonai, please my God, I have never been a man of words, not yesterday, not the day before, and not now that you have spoken to your servant. Ki chavad peh uchvad lashon anochi, for I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." When God protests, Moshe continues to plead, "Be Adonai, please my God, send someone else." Still, with some help from God and from Moshe's brother Aharon, Moshe continues to lead the people Israel to freedom. As we approach Purim, we read the story of Esther, who also cannot believe that she has the power to do anything on behalf of her people. When Esther's cousin Mordecai asks Esther, now the queen, to plead with the king on behalf of the Jewish people, Esther resists. "If any person," she says, "man or woman enters the king's presence in the inner court without having been summoned, there is but one law for them, that they be put to death. Only if the king extends his golden scepter to them, may they live. Now I have not been summoned to visit the king for the last 30 days. Even though the king has picked her as queen from a large pool of applicants, Esther does not believe that she has any more influence over the king than anyone else in the kingdom. And yet, Mordecai reminds her that if she does not help, her life is in danger. He adds the famous words, "Umi yodea," who knows? Perhaps you have become royalty for just a time as this. Ultimately, Mordecai convinces Esther that she is in just the right position to be an advocate for her people. While help may eventually come from somewhere else, at this moment in time, Esther is the people's only help, only hope. At Esther's request, among other actions, the king repeals Haman's decree to kill all of the Jews in the region. Because of Esther, the Jewish people as a whole have lived to tell her story. As someone with a special knowledge of Egyptian royalty, and as the one person who notices a bush that burns without being consumed, Moshe is the right person in exactly the right place at exactly the right time, regardless of what he believes about his power and abilities. As the chosen queen to King Ahasuerus, Esther is also the right person in exactly the right time, regardless of what she believes about her societal standing and her personal impact. While the rest of the world may not know it, when they see these powerful leaders in action, Esther and Moshe have a hard time convincing themselves of their worthiness. If even Esther and Moshe experience hesitation and confusion of identity, we too can experience imposter syndrome and still continue our roles in community, career, and family. In his book with a great title, I'm God, You're Not, Rabbi Lawrence Kushner addresses the imposter syndrome that Jewish leaders often experience. No matter how old you are, it always seems like you're never quite old enough to be a rabbi. No matter how much you know, you're never wise enough. No matter how devout, you're never pious enough. Tough job, the rabbi thing. I think we could replace the word rabbi in Rabbi Kushner's quote with any other title: parent, physician, or a CEO. One of the ironies of imposter syndrome is that there are probably more of us who have felt like imposters than those of us who always feel like we truly belong. After Kushner describes the woes of rabbinic imposter syndrome, he goes on to present the feeling as potentially positive. It keeps us humble enough to recognize the places we need to improve. With the fear that we might mess something up, imposter syndrome reminds us of our responsibility and our power to make real change in our community. As the biblical figures grow into their roles, both Moshe and Esther learn to use their imposter syndrome to their advantage. As Moshe communicates that he needs someone to speak for him, God offers Moshe's brother, Aharon, to help. As Esther knows that she needs to take her time to get in the right headspace, she, her maids, and all the Jews of Shushan fast for 3 days and 3 nights. As Esther knows the risk of death that comes with approaching the king, she takes time with her request. Esther plans 2 separate parties to elongate her appeal, to get the king in a good mood, and then finally to convince him to listen to her request. Like Moshe and Esther, when we use our sense of imposter syndrome to our advantage, we too can achieve a position in which we decisively earn the place we probably already earned long ago in community, career, or family. To access the positivity that can come with imposter syndrome, we first acknowledge the feeling as valid. After all, none of us are perfect, and no community can be the perfect fit for everyone at all times. Our next step is to ask ourselves and act on where that feeling is coming from. For instance, if we feel we are not learned enough or we lack a particular strength, we work on our shortcomings. We keep learning and experiencing, we ask for help and clarification, and we delegate roles that we know are not specifically ours or are not our strong suits. To do those who will, we delegate those roles to those who will thrive in them. We remind ourselves of what we have contributed that is uniquely ours, what we are contributing by being in this space right now, and what we have the unique ability to contribute in the future. Yes, sometimes when the help from others does not come, when the feeling of doubt does not go away, or when we keep feeling like something is just off about a given community, our imposter syndrome can be a sign that a given community or role is not the right place for us. One of the reasons that the process of conversion to Judaism takes so long, for example, is so that the student has the time to either shed any feelings of doubt or inadequacy, or to decide that this is not the right path going forward. While we cannot let the feeling of imposter syndrome stop us in our tracks, it is a feeling that we can listen to and grow from if we let it influence us in positive ways. No matter how confident or doubtful you feel this morning in this synagogue space, I do have to say that from the standpoint of the CBT community, you belong here and you have earned your place. This is a place to practice what it feels like to really know that you belong, that you're not an imposter. Just by showing up, you are providing an extra voice in song to God. Just in this weekend's Shabbat morning service, we have 4 service leaders, 5 Torah readers, 1 Haftarah reader, 2 gabbis, and 15 different honors that could only be held by those sitting in this room. Remember that these are honors that every week we need filled, and many of you are fulfilling that need. Later this morning, not later this morning, we actually just had this, but Earlier this morning, we will have a whole bunch of 4, 5, and 6-year-olds leading us in prayer. If the pre-K and kindergarten students can help us lead a prayer service and teach us some Torah with as much glee and confidence as they did, any of the adults in the room can too. For the parents of children of any age, you are the only people who can be the primary Jewish examples and educators for your kids. You and only you have the chance to build a home and choose a community in which your children know confidently that Judaism is somewhere they belong. So many people in this room have volunteered and led this community in ways that only you can. Not everyone can teach or bake or organize or fix confusing technology, but you do. Not everyone has the time in their schedule to stuff envelopes or the confidence to call people in need of an ear, but you do. If you have not yet, I promise you that there is some uniquely personal way in which you can make a difference here. Like Moshe and Esther, you may be the only person in a position to accomplish what you can for this community and any other community you're a part of. And of course, for those of us who feel set in our place in community, either here or anywhere else, we have the responsibility to create and maintain a space in which those around us know that they belong too. We have the responsibility to share that no one is alone in their feeling of inadequacy, to help brainstorm how we can transform that nagging feeling into a treasured gift. Shabbat Shalom.